Hello, Revere, and welcome to another Revere Veterans and Community Show. Today I have a special guest and a great guest. His name is Tom Hill. Tom, welcome to our show.
Thank you, Morris. Very glad.
First of all, before we start, I got to salute you for your service because you are more of a World War II veteran than I am. I wasn't a non-combatant, but you were in the Pacific Theater, Tom. So thank you for taking the time to come on.
Well, thank you very much.
Before we start, Tom, since you're a World War II veteran, tell us a little about your World War II experience.
Well, I enlisted. At that time, I worked for the GE, and the Air Force had a program that they would take you, could pick your field where you wanted to go and what you wanted to do. And I went into the Selective Service in Boston, 1010 Commonwealth Avenue, and then I enlisted. I enlisted with Tony Caffarelli, who was my chum, and that...
Is that his son who's the police chief?
That's his nephew.
Oh, his nephew?
And that Tony became a lieutenant in Revere Police Department, and his two brothers, Lindy and George, also. George is the father of the present chief of police now. We went in and they sent us home. They said, we'll take 200 a day. And then we went back, and that I was supposed to go to New Jersey, and they shipped me to Rome, New York. Tony was supposed to go with me. They shipped him to, I think, Georgia. I was in the Army 2 days, and they shipped me to Rome, New York. We started the air base there. It was a depot. It was the longest airstrip in the country, and as a depot, it was a supply outfit. They had 1,500 employees there and 200 soldiers that we started the base. From there, they had classrooms there, and they sent me to administration school because while I was there, or before I entered the service, I had gone to BC and taken a clerical course to take the exams and whatever. I spent 18 weeks there going to school, and my CO was Captain Dan Reeves, and he owned the Cleveland Browns. Nobody knew who he was. He was a handsome man. He was a great man, and he used to say, he used to march us down to our classes, and he knew that BC had a great football team. He used to quiz us on it. And his family owned a string of drugstores and supermarkets in the Cleveland, Ohio area. Nobody knew who he was until one weekend they went to New York, and the maitre d' at the Latin Quarter said, Mr. Reeves, come right with me, had a table set up for him. That's where they found out who he was. He used to ask us, where you going this weekend? Say, I only have a pass for 90 miles, which would take me to Albany, New York. And he said, I'll give you another pass. Don't use it unless you have to. You can go to Boston. So that someone would say, I only have $10 and I need 20 for a train fare. He'd give them the $10, pay me back on payday. From there, after I completed that course, they sent us to Sioux Falls, South Dakota. There was another 18-week course, only it was radio school. And the radio school was a 24-hour operation. And Sioux Falls, South Dakota was the largest city in the Northwest, and it had a population of 41,000, about the same population as Revere. There was 20,000 soldiers there. We were only allowed in town 1 day a week, and that because they couldn't handle you. Joe Foss, the Medal of Honor winner, he lived there, and they gave him a parade, and we were in the parade, and he was a truck driver. The history of Joe Foss, under the Medal of Honor winners, classifies him as a farmer. As I knew him, he wasn't. And I met him one time. We were going in a place to eat, and he was coming out, and he was kind of happy. He didn't have his hat on, and he says, "Boys, don't be in any hurry to get over there." He said, "It's not easy." He had been brought back to the United States by President Roosevelt. He had shot down 26 planes, him and Joe Grabowski, and the president didn't want to see him get killed, so he brought him back here. Anyway, I came back. I was on detached service to Rome, New York. And then in Rome, New York, they said, "You're trained for a heavy bomber group, and you're at an air service command, so you got to go to Europe." They sent us to Venice, Florida. And before that, I went to Augusta, Georgia, and then from there to Venice, Florida. And my CO was Bernard Law, the Cardinal's father. Bernard Law was living in Venice, Florida, with his mother. He was the only child, and his father was a colonel, and he was an ace. He had shot down at least 6 planes, and he was in charge of the airport there. He was a barnstormer, set up airports as a civilian all over the country before he went in. And his base of operation was Mississippi. Colonel Law grew up in Mississippi, was born in Mexico, and that then he went to Washington as an apostolic delegate. But anyway, his father went from there. While in Venice, Florida, he had a linoleum set up in his office, and I was detailed to go up and help the man put it in. I went in there, and he took a liking to me and to the other fellows. He was a very friendly man. And he said, "You, I'm going to send overseas." We all were going overseas. So I went back to the barracks at noontime for lunch. And while I was back there, I got a letter from my friend Sam Lombardo from Mount Morris, New York. And he had been in Rome with me and been in Sioux Falls with me. And he said, "I'm up in New Orleans here, and I'm with the Army Air Corps, but we're training with the Coast Guard and with the Navy. We're part of Air Service Command." So he showed me he had sailor uniform. Now, he was in the Army Air Corps, and he had dark blue overalls and that, and a sailor hat on, white sneakers. And I'm reading the letter, and I'm looking at the picture. So I went back, and I said, "Colonel, you do me a favor." And he said, "What's that?" I said, I have a friend up in New Orleans. He's going to this school, and they're training up there with the Coast Guard and Navy, and I'd like to go up there. So he said, "Go get me the letter." So I brought him the letter back. He read it. He said, "I'll see what I can do." Within 2 weeks, I was up in Georgia, and that I was on my way to New Orleans. I went to New Orleans. I was at Lake Pontchartrain, which is a big lake, 30 miles wide, from the Gulf of Mexico. And I went through training there with the Coast Guard and Navy, and I was in there for about, I don't know, a couple of months. And we used to go on training down to Tampa, Florida, 3 days down, one layover a day, come back 3 days, and then we were assigned to cruise. I was on a boat from there on, and that I was transferred to Angel Island, California, which is in the Bay of San Francisco, beyond Alcatraz. So you'd leave the bay, you'd dock at Alcatraz, and then go further out to Angel Island, where I was. Our boats were damaged on the way, and we had to stay there. We were there about 4 months in San Francisco. From there, then I went to New Guinea. I was in New Guinea for in New Guinea, Netherlands, East Indies, the Philippines, Okinawa, Ishima, and Japan for 20 and a half months.
Wow.
And that I came back, and my service went from October 31st, active duty, from November 12th, 1942 to December 5th, 1945 when I was discharged. That was my service.
Thank you again
So,
for your service,
well,
Tom.
thank
and
you.
Before we continue, I'd like to present you something that was given to us, Revere TV, by Domino's Restaurants, by Lenny Domino. I don't know if you know him or not.
I know Lenny. I know his father.
And the son.
And that Lenny Domino made the greatest salad you ever had. We used to call him from the Elks, and he'd make it, and about 6 or 8 of us would go up, and what a meal! Beautiful.
Tom, I got to tell you, when I told Lenny that you were coming on the show, he says, I think I know who you're going to have, Morris. I says, you got to do me a favor. So he gave me a nice gift certificate for you to join and go down. And since you say he makes a great salad, here's one that'll give you another crack at that salad.
Okay.
Just leave some for the other patients.
And he had the shrimp margarita. Shrimp margarita. I was in Fort Myers, Florida, at the Red Sox training camp, and that the head of the Red Sox society there, we all went to lunch. Eddie Pellegrini, and the fellow I was with was a great friend of Eddie Pellegrini's. He was the baseball coach at Rutgers University, Matt Bolger. And that we were sitting down there, and George Scott was a couple of tables over, and they said, what are you going to have for dinner? So I said, do you have shrimp margarita? He said, I never heard of it. So he said, what is it? So that was started at Domino's restaurant. They gave it the name, shrimp margarita. It was, you get a pan, you put a bit of lettuce in there, and then you put a little bit of oil, then you put some shrimp in there, and then you dress the shrimp, and then put a little oil on top of that. Then you have a side order of pasta over here. You bake it. It's delicious. And that they put lemon slices on top of it. And that was shrimp margarita.
Tom, before we continue, you are a special citizen in the city of Revere. You're a special guest to me, too. Thank you for coming on the show. Besides this gift certificate from Domino's Restaurant, we present the flag to every veteran that comes on here because this is what you fought for. So we can talk the way we're talking now. Freedom. As you can see what's going on in the world today. They want to take our free speech away. But that's not going to happen with people like you and with people like me. So on behalf of the Revere Veterans Service, under the direction of Nick Bowen, the City of Revere and the Revere Allied Veterans Council, we present you with this flag.
Thank you. I love the flag.
Yep, Tom, because remember, you gave your life for that.
I love them.
And I was glad to have you come back.
Morris, I thank you for the opportunity of coming back.
Now, we want to get into a little history. I used to go to the Soldiers' Home before they closed it down because now I got to go to Boston. But you said you had a little history of the Soldiers' Home.
Well, the Soldiers' Home was started in 1882. It's 132 or 133 years old. They started as a clinic. Then they added a dormitory to it to take care of the homeless veterans of the people that had no home. And in the 1950s, they built a hospital part of it that with permanent doctors and nurses and whatnot, and they put a chapel up there. It's still there today. The hospital had great administrators up there, the Quigleys, and I don't know about before them, but Larry Quigley, a former mayor of Chelsea, became the commandant, and he took his son John in as an assistant, and John had just run for representative and lost for representative by 1 vote to Representative Kamens. And that he went with his father, and then his younger brother Andy then ran for office Chelsea was divided then between a Jewish population and an Irish population. And that's really how they voted and the vote came. They were all popular. And anyway, Andy swept the next election. And that John Quigley, you'd call him up, and he'd do whatever he could for you. And that he said to me one day, you know, I don't mind, I'm glad to help you. But be around sometime when we're going before the committee to get funding for these different things that you're asking for, which he was absolutely right. And then we started to help them. And that in the 1950s, they went after the insurance carriers that had health insurance for city-state employees, like Blue Cross, Blue Shield, to get funding, which they didn't do because they made the state pay for the veterans' hospitalization or medical treatment. When they won that after about the third try, they got the funding back. They established another soldiers' home in the Chicopee, Holyoke area. And that with that funding, the extra money they had, that paid for it. Both the commandants at different times became state commanders of the American Legion. And the commander, Larry Quigley, had died, or he would have been a national commander. The commandant at the Holyoke, Chicopee area for central and the western part of the Massachusetts to help them out, he became a national commander. And that since closed because the hospitals that the Veterans Administration supplied here didn't have the equipment that the hospitals had. And the money was greater, so the veteran had to go to Beth Israel or Mass General, wherever. And that's how it went. But it was the state of Massachusetts, the first one to establish a soldier's home. Other states followed, not many, but a few. And that then in 1930, they established the Veterans Administration. Up to that point, the veteran was on his own. If he didn't have the money to go to a doctor or whatever it was, or if he didn't have anybody to back him up to contest whatever he was going to do for pension benefits, he was out of luck.
So the veterans of the First World War, really had no benefits.
Only from the soldiers' home that came there to go into a clinic, or if they were without a family, but it was a very limited amount of medical care they were going to get. He was strictly on his own, and actually they were not equipped to know how they were going to get these benefits.
Okay. Tom, I got a question for you, and we talked about this before we went on the air, very low, but you can give us a good history on the benefits for veterans.
On the benefits for veterans, I have a book here, and that there's a Veterans Committee.
It's right here, Tom.
Yeah. There's a Veterans Committee by the Congress in the United States, and they set the limits on the veterans. When they originally set up this program, it was to be, I believe, 80% of the average salary of a person. So if the average monthly salary was $1,000, they would give you 80% of that tax-free. It was not any benefit you were getting. It was just a reward for the payments that you got. If you get a 10% disability, that it would be getting a prescription in the course of a month, going to a medical doctor, or being hospitalized. And that's since been amended to, let me see, let's see.
Your eyesight is pretty good, Tom.
Yeah, well, the average 100% for a veteran. Now, there's three classifications because they added spouses to it, and then they add dependent children beyond that. Gave you extra money. So you might have 3 different veterans with the same ailment that get 3 different awards. The maximum is $12,256 in a year. A veteran with 1 dependent gets $16,056 $51. With no dependents, it's $14,978.
Is that from
Homebound
the federal government? The federal government does
Yeah.
that? Okay.
and that permanently household one dependent is $18,773. Regular aid and attendance to dependents $20,447. Veterans regular in attendance and a dependent $24,239. Two veterans married to one another $16,051, and increases for each additional child $2,093. You must have active duty of 36 months for 100% duty. You must have 30 continuous days and be discharged due to service-connected disability for 100%. 30 to 36 months is 90%. 24 months is 30 months, 80%. 18 to 24 months, 70%. 12 to 18 months, 80%. 6 months to 12 months, 50%. 90 days, 8 months. Now, there's also things I'm not familiar with, but it's a special classification where they might give you $100,000 if you lose your life. That's like they have a fund for firemen and cops, and they set aside so much money, and they have that in there. If the money is exhausted, you're exhausted.
Tom, I've got to change the subjects for a minute here. Homeless veterans. Now,
Yeah.
you know, in the wintertime when it gets cold, in the summertime, of course, a lot of them sleep outside. But in the wintertime, there shouldn't be any homeless veterans. And if there is a homeless veteran, what can he do?
Well, they're closing a lot of these places now. They don't have them that they used to have, and they're
Right.
closing them so that they're sleeping under railroad tracks and things of that, not railroad bridges.
And the
that.
subways, too.
Yeah, they
and the
have it
tunnels.
right here in the city of Revere.
Oh.
I know one guy that got killed that he used to go with one of our tenants, and that he'd be around during the daytime walking up and down. I live on Pleasant Street, and I see people pushing carts and stuff and that type, and I assume that they're homeless people.
So,
And
but
yeah.
if he's a veteran, he should go to his veterans agent.
Well, to try it and see what they have from. Like in Boston, they're trying to help them and all that. And I'm
Tom-
sure Danny Rizzo is a great man.
Oh, yeah.
He's doing
He's
great.
a veteran himself.
Yeah, 6 years. And
Right. Tom, you got some nice books here. Tell us a little about, especially this. I love this book here.
well, this is a quiz book of all the mayors, all the mayors, all the generals and everything else, all the wars that we're in. And it's quizzes. It's multiple answers, and then there's a chapter where it gives you the answer to it.
Give us a
And,
couple of quiz questions.
Well,
Let the public out there hear about it.
well, if you're going like if you're taking presidents, how many presidents do you think we had in the United States?
Offhand, I would say between 42 and 44.
44. You're correct.
Okay, offhand.
Okay. George Washington, was he ever defeated running for elected office?
I don't think he ever ran for elected office. He was the first president.
He ran for elected office in 1755, 21 years before we got our independence, and he was defeated.
By who?
And that was, I don't know, I
Okay.
don't have that name.
No, I didn't even know that.
But he lost the first election he was ever in, 21 years before we got it under the British thing. Okay, my father was president, my son was president. What's my name?
Well, it could be either the Harrisons, the Adams, or the Bushes.
You get the Harrison, correct.
Okay.
One was the 9th president, the other was the 23rd president. The 9th president, rather, died in office. He served, I think it was 32 days. He, at his inaugural speech, he contracted pneumonia and he died.
I have an identical twin brother, Tom. His name is Norris. And he's the one that taught me all these things. So when you ask me these questions, that's why I have the answers.
Let's see. The word okay, where did that come from?
That you got me on.
Okay.
There we go.
Senator Buchanan, or President Buchanan, he had a group of friends that used to get together. And when they had the right answer, the right program, he would say, okay.
Oh.
And that's how they got it.
By the way, we have 3.5 minutes left, Tom. Take about 3 minutes to yourself and talk about what you want to, or whatever you would like to, about life insurance or whatever you want to
Well,
talk.
let's talk about the life insurance part of it.
Go ahead.
If you were in the service, and that they had military savings bank life insurance, and national service life insurance rather, which was similar to that, and that if you had that, and you would lost your life in the service, you could pay it. It was strictly term insurance. Now, if you had that, 5,000 and 10,000, 10,000 was the limit. It was according to your age, and I was 21 when I went in, and they updated every 5 years, and I paid 65 cents a thousand, and I paid $6.50 a month, which was deducted from my pay. If I was to lose my life, my beneficiary would get 5,000 or 10,000. But the thing there was, if it was $5,000 and you were 30 or under, your dependent, you were paid in a 10-year period. So you got 10 divided into 5,000 was $500 a year, not 5,000 whole.
Oh, okay.
If you were over 30, you get paid according to your age. So if you were, say, 44, you get $4.40 for every $1,000 worth the insurance you had. You would get $44 a month for giving your life, and that would be paid guaranteed up to your age 65. If you live beyond the age of 65, they continued it. But at that time, life expectancy was only 65.
Right.
And that was corrected later on by the Gold Star Mothers of the state of Massachusetts.
Tom, I got to say, I'm glad we've both lived past 65.
Thank
You're
you, me
91,
too.
92?
92.
And I'm 86. God bless us both. And I would like to take a minute of the time to say to all our troops out there, thank you for your service. To the people of Revere, thank you for listening. To our great country, the United States of America, thank you for letting us do what we do here, because we are free here, Tom.
Thank you, Morris.
And to you one more time, thank you for your service, Tom. An honor and a pleasure to have you up here. And we're not finished. We got to get you back up here so we can do some more history trivias. You're terrific, Tom.
Well, do the best you can, Morris. That was it.
So, Tom, thank you for coming.
Thank you. Thank you for the opportunity of being here.
Right. We got a lot of history left, both of us.
Oh, yeah.
You in the Pacific and me in Europe.
You're right. We didn't even get to the population.
We'll get to that on the next show.
Okay.
We're going to have a couple of more shows before. We're close to 200 shows coming on in the Revere Veterans and Community.
That's beautiful.
So that's going to be fantastic here.
It's great, I think, for the kids, the history of the city, the country, and whatever we have.
I would like to see every kid, boy and girl, do at least 1 year of service, not in the military or in the National Guard. Either one.
I think so, too.